One. Hi, I'm Tanushri Devnath, going to talk about the silent streets of Times Beach, a dioxin disaster tale, and explore the history of the community affected by the dioxin contamination. Also, learn about the challenges they faced and how they preserved through the tough times. Looking at this journey, we understand the impact of an environmental tragedy and the importance of taking care of our environment. So, the purpose slide deck focuses into the 4 points. And here is a table of contents which talks about the various graphs and the charts. So in this slide deck, that is remembering the Times Beach environmental disaster, it will reflect on the Times Beach disaster nearly 40 years ago in Missouri. It marked one of the worst environmental tragedies in US history. The calamity unfolded when an individual hired to control the road dust unknowingly sprayed a toxic mix of dioxin and waste oil. A severe flood in December 1982 exacerbated the situation, spreading the contamination across the town. Unaware of the toxicity, the town underwent a visual transformation over 19 years, evolving from abandoned homes along with gridded streets to nature reclaiming the area, with trees covering once visual lane. So here we can see the table which reflects the timeline of dioxin contamination starting from 1960s to 2012. So in 2012, the EPA Region 7 conducted a soil sampling at Route 66 State Park, and it confirmed that there was no significant health risk for workers or visitors in that specific area. So here in this slide deck, we'll see the graph, which is presented here is a line charted graph titled as the dioxin levels TEQ in study versus comparison groups. It shows the levels of dioxins expresses it toxic equivalency question, that is TEQ, in two groups over 3 rounds of data collection, that is round 1, round 2, and round 3. This line chart compares the levels of dioxins measured in TEQ between a study group and a comparison group over the 3 rounds. The x-axis, the horizontal axis, represents the time dimension divided into 3 rounds of data collection. The y-axis, that is the vertical axis, indicates the dioxin levels measured in parts per trillion, abbreviated as PPT. So these two lines are depicted with the study group shown in blue and the comparison group in green. Additionally, there is a symbol representing the characteristics measured marked as TEQ, which stands for toxic equivalent question. So in round 1, both the groups start with similar dioxin levels, that is above 11 ppt. In round 2, the study group levels decrease, crossing below the comparison group levels, which increases, followed by round 3, where we observe a significant drop in dioxin levels for the study group going below 9 ppt, while the comparison group also shows a decrease but remains above the level of study group. So in this, the key takeaway, the graph illustrates a downward trend in TQ dioxin levels for the study group across all 3 rounds, while the comparison group levels fluctuate but also end lower than where it started. So here the graph displayed is a bar chart, and where we can see the dioxin levels, that is TCDD in this study versus comparison groups. It represents the levels of TCDD, a specific type of dioxin measured in parts per billion, that is ppb, for two distinctive groups over 3 rounds of testing. So the horizontal axis categorizes the data into 3 rounds of testing, while the vertical axis represents the concentration of dioxin measured in parts per billion. So there are two groups represented by the bars, the study group shown in the orange and the comparison group depicted in green. In round 1, the study group has a TCDD level of approximately 1 ppb, which is highest level of observed in the chart. The comparison level started with a level of above 1 pb1, and for round 2, both groups showed a decrease in TCDD levels. The study dropped to just 1 pbb, while the comparison group fell slightly below 1 pb1. In round 3, the dioxin levels remained relatively stable for both the groups, within the study group shown a slight increase compared to round 2, and the comparison group maintaining a consistent level. Overall, this chart demonstrates a decrease from round 1 to round 2 in both the groups, with the study group experiencing a more significant reduction. Here in this pie chart, we can see the chart is divided into three segments, each color coded to represent different concentration. The color coding is the blue, which represents 39%, followed by wherein we can see the TCDD levels is 20 ppt, and the orange segments, which makes 32% of the chart, corresponding to samples with TCDD levels between 20 to 60 ppt. Lastly, the gray segment, accounting for 29% of the chart, represents the TCDD levels, which is 60 ppt. So most of the samples contain relatively low levels of TCDD, with the highest percentage below 20 ppt. So to conclude, this distribution indicates while the majority of the samples have low TCDD, there is still a considerable prevalence of higher levels within the tested adipose tissue. And what is the current status? So if you look into the current status, in 1997, remedial action successfully addressed the contamination issue. By 1999, the site was transformed into Route 66 Park, and uh, the EPA removed it from the national priority list in 2001. In 2012, a reassessment for residual dioxin contamination was done in the demand of the safe public visitors. So the remedies of the contamination was done to clean up the site, treated and removed the contaminated oil, and also it restored the site with clean soil and plants. So to conclude, the time switch dioxin contamination had a history starting from 1960 when Agent Orange components were made in Missouri. In 1970, someone named Russell Byers tried to leading sickness in the area. In the area, and provided by there was action taken to clean up by 1990s, and in 2012 it was confirmed to be safe by the EPA. Recent studies show that after burning waste, the harmful substance decreased, and there is a connection between certain chemicals and our immune system. Today the place is considered safe and removed from a special list in 2001, and the EPA assures it okay for people to visit and work there.